Hey everyone, welcome again to another collaboration between Milk to Meat and How to Think. That'd be Vinny Basili and myself, Kurt Rushlow. And today we're going to be talking about what do you do when somebody comes up to you with a proof text and they're using that proof text to support some sort of doctrine or conclusion that they already have in mind. And they're trying to convince you by saying, oh, well, see, it says it right here. There you go. That's proof for it. Well, what do you do with that? We're going to dive into this. We're going to use an example of one that's commonly used and just kind of show you our process on how we deal with that. So, again, welcome back, Vinny. I always love doing this with you. How you doing?
Yeah, yeah, I'm doing great, doing great. It's always a blast. Last one in Hebrew 6 was really fun. Can't wait to get back into it this time with Matthew chapter 25.
Right on.
Yeah.
And so what are we taking a look at here?
Well, the highlighted section on the screen, verses 45 and 46 from chapter 25. Uh, Somebody who isn't reading in context, somebody who might be a novice at handling the word, they'll read this and they'll probably come to, or a Catholic or something like that, will come to the conclusion and say, "Oh, well, see, it's not grace through faith, not of works. See, it's right here. Jesus says you got to have works, and it's right here in verse 46, and these shall go away into everlasting punishment, but the righteous into life eternal." Right? And we'll look at all these. Who are these? Right? So I mean, the same process we've been talking about. Who are the these? Well, they're going to look at the previous verse. Then he shall answer them, saying, "Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye did it not," we're talking about works, "to the one of the least of these, ye did it not to me." And so there you go. You got to do works in order to get saved. Otherwise, you're going into everlasting punishment. So, what's the very first thing that comes to your mind, Kurt, when explaining, when approaching that explanation?
Right. So, I mean, I'll keep in mind that let's not jump to conclusions and just immediately eliminate what they're trying to say. So we can start off and have on the table, okay, works for salvation. To a degree, it does look like this, right? So that's
Mm-hmm.
fine. That could be on the table. And then what I'd want to do is just explore the context to see what it's actually saying. And like you mentioned, you have the and right there, starting verse 46.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like verse 45 starts with then.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have these shall go away into everlasting punishment. So who is that talking about? Verse
Mm-hmm.
45, then shall he answer them. So natural question again is who is them?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, right there, you can't really take this isolated passage at the end of a entire speech. I mean, and I'm even jumping to a conclusion there because I already know it, but like who is speaking, who's being spoken to,
Mm-hmm.
when are they being spoken to, what time period is this? Are there parables involved? Is it direct application? Is it historical? I mean, there's so
Mm-hmm.
many questions already that are already coming to my mind, and those
Mm-hmm.
questions just demand answers before I can even say exactly what this verse is trying to tell us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I guess at that rate, why don't we just like try to figure out who's the them? Let's try to identify what the them is. So, so here we have them in verse 45. Let's go back. Then shall they, well, here we go, we have a they again. And these theys are people saying, "Lord, when saw we thee in hungered or thirst?" So let's go back. "I was a stranger." Okay. Uh, "For I wasn't hungered, you gave me no meat." So this "I," seems to be talking about, it's Jesus speaking, right? So Jesus is speaking things in 42 and 43, and then 44 is this group of people that we have yet to identify, saying, what are you talking about? When did we see you hungry and thirsty and in prison and blah, blah, blah. So let's go back. Then he shall say, oh, who's the he? Shall also say unto them on the left hand. Oh, who are they on the left? So we have a little bit more context. We're talking about people on the left hand. Well, the left hand of who? And who will say this until so see, we gotta go back, right?
Well,
So let's say
41 starts with then, so
right.
you already know to go back to 40.
Yeah.
And then 40, you say, and the king shall answer and say unto them, well, hold on a second now. And that, so, okay, are we talking a literal king? Or is maybe this suggesting it's part of a parable? We don't know yet, but it adds some more context. And again, there's that word and that verse
Hmm.
40 starts with.
Hmm. Yeah, so my statement over here of the I wasn't hungered, I wasn't thirsty, thinking that was Jesus was like, well, it could be, but we do know for sure it is the king. The king is saying this. I. Well, we,
Hmm.
we know Jesus is the King of Kings, right? But that's just our Christian presuppositional thinking, which it can be a true presupposition. I'm not saying this isn't Jesus speaking. I'm just making sure that I stick strictly to what the text is saying. So the king. So we know who this king is speaking. Okay,
Hmm.
let's go back. Or when saw we thee in sick or in prison? Okay, so looks like there's another group of people, right? Uh, 37. Then shall the righteous. Okay, so we have the righteous answering him, uh, probably the king, right? Saying, Lord. Okay, so king and Lord. When saw we thee and hungered and fled thee, or fed thee, or thirsty and gave thee drink? Okay, so we have
Seems
this
like,
king talking to. Go ahead.
oh, just saying, seems like we need to go back. We need to go back further. We haven't even come to the starting point of the story yet, or whatever the context of this is, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. See, all the more reason why you shouldn't just go and just go right here and say, look at that. It's like, look at how much there's already. We're missing so many details by just pretending like those last two passages are the only thing in Matthew 25, right? So, um, yeah. So let's keep going back. The king. There we go. So we know it's the king again. The king say unto them on his right hand. Okay. So we have the king talking to people on the right hand, and we have people talking, the king talking to people on the left hand. So we have right hand, left hand. Okay, I know there's a biblical, even cultural context of what it means to be on one's right hand and one's left, but for now, I won't read into that quite yet. Just that because that could be opportunities for presuppositions reading into the text, but we just know there's a right hand, there's a left hand. A
We're
king is
still we're
talking.
still looking for the beginning of the story, or so to speak, whatever's being told, right? We
Right.
we haven't
Yep.
even gotten there yet. Now we're even at verse 32 starts with the word and. We're
Uh
not even
huh.
there. We're not even at the beginning of the story yet. Yet they started at verse 45. So that's just something for observation for anybody watching.
Uh
Just
huh.
you see how this works out. Let's try to find the beginning of this story altogether. Like, where does it
Mm-hmm.
start? Where does the point start? So
Mm-hmm.
verse 32 looks like we still have to go back.
Yep, and yeah, 32 starts with and. So it's connected to something, okay? So, and before him, well, king, shall be gathered all nations. Okay, nations. And he shall separate them one from another as a shepherd divideth his sheep from the goats. Okay, so looks like there are nations on his left and right hand. He's separating them as if they are sheep and goats. So okay, so we have sheep and goats. One of them is on the right hand, one of them is on the left. We're talking about this king. Okay, let's go back. See, here's a conjunction, and it's connected to something. Let's go back. When the Son of Man. Okay, we know who the Son of Man is. Jesus calls himself that. Right? The Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all the holy angels with him. Then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory. Okay, now we
Hmm.
have a chronological marker of what's going on here. When? When what? The Son of Man shall come in his glory. Has that happened yet, Kurt?
Well, I sure hope not, because things are not so good if you look at the world.
So just to give you a little bit of an idea, so we have when the Son of Man shall come, then you got this whole everlasting punishment, blah blah. So sounds like already, without even going to the rest of the chapter, we're already talking about a future thing that hasn't even happened yet.
Right. And did we now the just for again, just for the audience, now did we hit the beginning of this particular point yet?
I would say not. I mean,
Well,
we have a,
I think we might have, but like how can you tell? So go back to the verse 30.
mhm. And cast ye the unprofitable servant into outer darkness, there shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth.
Right. So that seems like the conclusion of a point.
Hmm.
And then verse 31 seems like a new point.
Yeah, which is why, sometimes you'll find these little paragraph signs in the King James, and that's added in by uh, publishers and stuff to kind of like signify, oh, here's like a new idea being introduced.
Yeah.
I don't know how perfect they are. I don't really rely on them very
No,
much.
I wouldn't do that. I didn't even notice it, but
Yeah.
now I do happen to know that verse 30 is the conclusion of the parable of the talents.
Hmm.
So it is the end of the parable of the talents, and it is beginning a new concept.
Yep. Yep. So yeah, and if we just keep doing our process here, you'll eventually see what Kurt is saying, right? So everyone that hath shall be given. So let's go. Why don't we just go back a little further? Let's say, why don't we? How about this? So here we go. Another little paragraph symbol. For the kingdom of heaven is as a man traveling into a far country. So now we have a parable about the kingdom of heaven.
Mm.
And that passage you mentioned is in the
Yep.
context of the kingdom of heaven.
So there you go. So you have the parable of the talents. Then it's the parable of the talents is completed, 14 through 30. That's the parable of the talents. Is it pointing to a broader concept? Sure it is. But do you see already how far we got away from just saying, oh, verse 45 and verse 47? Why did you start there? Like that's not the smart way to do it. You're missing all sorts of context. You're talking
Right.
about the end of a story without telling anybody the beginning of it. Why would you do that?
Yeah. Yeah. Harry Potter defeats Voldemort. Somebody who doesn't know anything about Harry Potter, they're gonna be like, okay.
Okay, okay.
So, yeah. So, yeah. So we got parable. We know Jesus is a very parabolic, so to speak, man. Speaking a lot of parables, and so yeah, we got a kingdom of heaven. Talents. You see the word talents here. Talents, 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 and so that's important to note. Let's just, for the sake of investigation, let's just keep going further back. We haven't even covered the whole chapter yet, right? Watch, therefore. Oh, watch. Like, is this implying a future event, kind of like what I just said over here? When the Son
Hmm.
of Man?
So we're kind of
Watch.
getting a broader, how do all these parables connect together?
Yeah.
Is it talking about a common theme maybe that he's trying to illustrate so that people will
Mhm.
understand it?
Yeah. So is uh, the kingdom of heaven comes on earth when the Son of Man comes, like the second advent, perhaps the second coming.
Mm. I mean, possibly. It looks like we have a separate parable. So it looks like 14 is the start of the parable of talents.
Hmm.
And then he got done with a different parable, which looks like it ends at verse 13.
Hmm.
So and then, of course, we already know this is the parable of the 10 virgins.
Yep.
So, and if you notice, we haven't even answered the question yet of who is Jesus speaking to? And the only reason we're saying Jesus is it happens to be a red letter type of thing. We don't even know if, let's say, the red letters weren't there. We don't even
Yeah.
know if Jesus is speaking right now.
I'm curious. I think I have a way. Here we go. we're we're going to teach you how to read the Bible the right way. We're going to take these red letters off. How about that? How do you like them
Ah,
apples?
there you go. Yeah. So who's speaking? So you're going all the way to verse 45. You
Yeah.
haven't even identified who's speaking, who's being spoken to, when are they being spoken to? I mean, it's Matthew 25. Is this Old or New Testament? I,
Well, like we mentioned in the previous Bible study video, uh, the death of the testators needed to have the testament be of effect, and Jesus doesn't die on the cross until much later in Matthew. We're still talking about pre crucifixion. This is
Interesting.
chronologically speaking, this is still Old Testament. Okay, so
Now,
that's
for
important
just
to know.
for the purpose of the audience, now, yes, we do know that it's Jesus speaking, and we've already said that and given it away. But what we're going to demonstrate here is how do you know that? How do you know that, Vinny? How do you know that, Kurt? How do you know that it's Jesus speaking? Well, we can't tell yet. Even in Matthew 25 doesn't even tell us.
Yeah.
So what might that suggest, Vinny, if we want to answer that question from a beginner's mind?
Well, it's not, it sounds like it's designed in a way to make you keep going back and back and back because I mean there's so many again the word then it's not really a word you start an idea with. It's obviously connected to something. So like going to chapter 24 is probably crucial. Oh, here we go. And Jesus went out and departed. Okay, so we have an actual like action of Jesus, right? And still even the word and. So there's that too. But we can we can probably look at the later part of chapter 24. Verily I say unto you, I see that in verse 47. Uh, Therefore be also ready. Oh, look at that. Here's that theme again. Be ready, for in such an hour as you think not, the Son of Man cometh. Oh, we're talking about second coming stuff, right? You see that?
And we might not even want to quite make that assumption yet, but it is a passage suggesting or a verse suggesting a timeline
Right,
or
right.
some. So yeah, so maybe
Yeah,
we
yeah,
could
yeah.
come to the conclusion later. I mean, I know we've already done the study and we already have that. And of course, we're trying to demonstrate to the audience
Right, right, yeah.
how
And
to
it's
kind
it's
of
and
do it with like how do you find all this out, right? So
right, yeah, and like it's a good example of how like just the way I just spoke about that right now. It's telling that there's a presupposition I'm holding. You know, it's like I don't think you're ever going to get to the point where you never have presuppositions. It's just
yeah, yeah.
you're going to think the thing. And so like you know like yeah like it doesn't say second advent or second coming. You know, but you know as much as I have read the Gospel of Matthew and what I already know about the Bible, it's kind of like an informed conclusion I've reached. But yes, from the perspective of somebody who's never even touched Matthew 24 or 25, that would be a valid question. Like, well, what do you mean? How do you know that's the second coming, right? You know, so it's an important thing to keep in
And I
mind.
think earlier you touched on a good point that you did find that it says Jesus. So back to verse 1, 24:1.
Mm-hmm.
And Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him for to
Ah,
show him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said unto them, see ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. Now that's very interesting. I definitely have some even apologetic answers to that are
mm-hmm.
very historically interesting. And then
Mm-hmm.
it says, and as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately,
Mm.
saying, tell us, when shall these things be?
Yeah,
And
that's
Jesus answered and said unto them.
hmm. Have we identified who our them is? Perhaps so.
So I think we identified the speaker. we identified where he was, the Mount of Olives. Now,
Mhm.
this entire speech from Jesus is known as the Olivet Discourse.
Mhm.
Now, if you continue reading, what you're going to find is there's no break, nothing to suggest that Jesus has stopped the Olivet Discourse between here and chapter 25. So notice chapter 25 is still the Olivet Discourse.
Yeah, and you don't see, like, just skimming the text, I don't see anything that talks about let us go to another place and then they will go somewhere else or something like that. You know, it's
Hmm.
like I'm just just skimming right now, and I don't I don't see any of that. It's it's almost like one giant. Look, see, we got that little symbol again, but it's not indicating a change of scenery, or it's just talking about another idea immediately after the tribulation. Interesting.
And
The
after
tribulation. Yeah.
after the tribulation.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So yeah, but back to my main point, we don't we're not seeing any evidence at all that there's a change of scenery between 24 and 25.
Right.
Right? We
And
go
then
right into it.
it might also um applying the keep reading principle. What about Matthew 20? Is he continuing on with the Olivet Discourse into Matthew 26?
Let's see.
I actually don't even know the answer to this right now.
Yeah.
Oh, there you
So,
go. And it came to pass when Jesus had finished all these sayings. Finished all these sayings.
uh-huh. Yeah.
So seems like 24 and 25 are kind of an entire thought. They kind of contain an entire point. They need to be examined both within the context of themselves, and then of course you'll get your cross references and things like that.
Hmm.
Um, Now, what have we demonstrated so far? Well, anybody watching, like, how do you kind of see the flaw of just saying, "Oh, look, verse 20 or 45 and 40." So literally the end of an entire concept that we just demonstrated to you. So that there are two whole chapters of the Bible, and it's talking about the same thing in a sense, in a different way, but that right there is your immediate context. You're going to two sentences that are at the end of two chapters that are on the same concept, completely ignoring all the context to it. And what are you doing? You're saying, well, I believe you can lose your salvation. Look at this passage. It's bad. It's a bad
Yeah.
way to do things. Like,
Yeah.
who reads a book like that?
Right. Yeah, and the problem is we're using the Bible as like a theological fact-checking book or something, or like some sort of like instrument to kind of like prove our point about something. And it's like, and that's not at all what the Bible is meant for. It's like what Kevin Thompson says on his channel, Beyond the Fundamentals. He says, if you're going to the Bible to try to prove some sort of doctrine that you insist upon, God just might give you just enough rope to hang yourself with.
Well, you're gonna find it, right? Like
Yeah,
if you're looking for, if you have an idea in mind and you're looking for something to support the idea that you have,
yeah,
you'll find it, right? Like if you're looking at clouds and you are looking at clouds with the idea in mind, oh, I want to see what shapes are in the clouds. Oh, look, there's an elephant. That one looks like an elephant, and that one looks like a dog. Well, it doesn't really look like that. It's just a cloud.
yeah,
But because you're setting your mind towards looking for similarities, you're going to find it. And that we shouldn't look at the Bible as a bunch of clouds.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's one a complete framework of an entire firmament with clouds, with space behind it, with a bunch of stars and planets and galaxies. I mean, there's so much more behind it, and you're focused on this silly little cloud that you think looks like a puppy or something.
And I think what we also showed, right? So do you see how much work it just took to start from verse 45 and verse 46 out of context? So, I mean, the other thing is, why are you even doing that to begin with? Now, the reason that we're showing you that is because people are going to come up to you and do that to you. They're gonna present that to you
Mhm.
like that. But do you see how much they did not do to getting to that point? So, if you're reading the Bible yourself, is that the best way to start, or would it have been best to start from Matthew 24?
Right. Yeah. Or maybe you should just maybe you should just start at Matthew chapter 1 and just read it. Maybe even then, like, yeah, there's a lot of information up to this point. Maybe your mind might get a little lost, but I mean, but you get what I'm trying to say. Like it would be so much more beneficial to just read the entire Gospel of Matthew, start to finish, than to sit here and just be like, verse 45, there you go. It's not grace through faith, not of works. Paul's lying. The Corinthians or, whatever, or Ephesians chapter 2, that's wrong. It's a contradiction.
Yeah. And so I mean all that and then what have we discovered? Well, Matthew 24 and 25 is Jesus privately speaking to his disciples.
Yup.
And what did the disciples do? They asked him a question. So what is verse 45 and 46 here? Like, why is it even being said? It's because it's answering a question. It's a part of answering a question. What question is being answered? And are you even thinking of that if you're just taking it out of context? Well, of course you're not. You
Right.
think it's answering the question, can you lose your salvation? That's not even the context. That's not even the question being it. It is actually answering a question. You're you
Yeah.
see what I mean? Like it, wow.
Yeah, and look at this right here in 24. Remember how I had my, presupposition that, about second coming? Well, I mean, this is how I know my presupposition, which, I mean, it really wasn't. I already knew the passage, but this is how I know it's right. Tell us, this is the disciples talking to Jesus, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world? There you go.
And Jesus answered and said unto them. So you think maybe the things that are following are an answer to that question?
Mm-hmm.
So what is Jesus even talking about? What is Jesus talking about in verse 45 and 46 that you just used as a proof text? Not you, but
Yeah.
the
Mm-hmm.
hypothetical person we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, so the whole, like, the heartbeat behind this entire topic is Matthew 24:3, right? What shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world? And Jesus is giving you an illustration of the kingdom of heaven when the Son of Man cometh in his glory. He says right here, many will call my name. I am Christ and shall deceive many. So Jesus is talking about that there is going to be a future time that even other people are going to be claiming to be him coming, but he's very clearly saying the Son of Man cometh in all his glory, seated on his throne with his holy angels, right? So we're already, it's like I know the word is icky to most people, but dispensations, okay? Rightly understanding how the word of God is properly dispensed. Is Jesus talking about Pauline revelation of grace through faith, not of works here? Or is he talking about what Revelation likes to point us to? Which
Is a
one's more
single
plausible?
does a single disciple at this point believe in the death, burial, and resurrection?
Of course not. It didn't even happen yet.
Right. So who's your audience? Yeah. I mean, and that's just again, this is just putting things in context. Now I will throw a curveball to you here. That might be an objection somebody might say. All right.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so he's talking to the disciples and he's answering the disciples and he's saying the word ye.
Mm-hmm.
is he directly like saying that the disciples are going to experience this, or is it kind of a this is a future event, so you can pass down this information for future Israelites?
Hmm.
So which one and why would you answer it that way?
So you're asking about the who's the ye when Jesus says ye?
Right. So somebody might say, well, he's talking to the disciples, he's telling the disciples to look out for this, that, and they might be suggesting, so it happened in the disciples' lifetime.
Mm.
So
Well,
is he directly applying it to the disciples, or is he talking about a future event and giving them information that they can pass down to future generations?
yeah, I was trying to find a passage right here. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. So could the ye could just be those in Judea, right?
Hmm. Are you in Judea, Vinny?
No, I'm in upstate New York, right
Hmm.
near Lake Ontario. So I don't think that's talking about me.
Yeah, yeah, I'm in Colorado. I mean, I guess I fled into the mountains currently, but I'm
Yeah.
but I'm not in Judea, nor have I ever been in my entire life.
Yeah. Well, I just noticed something too. That's why I highlighted these before I went to verse 16. This gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world. Like, don't we hear about in Revelation about a angel preaching the gospel,
Hmm.
right? There's a gospel being preached in Revelation,
Think
and
of
it's
Revelation 7,
yeah. Let's see. Let me see if I can Rev 7. Let's see.
somewhere around 14, I want to say.
Yeah, and there's the tribe sealed and stuff. Maybe I passed it. Let's see. How about preach
I think I took a note.
gospel?
Or maybe it's chapter 14 and I'm dyslexic.
Huh. Okay. Let me see.
Let's see.
Yeah, you can edit all this space out in the while you're doing your video editing.
No, my note said 7, 9 through 14, Revelation.
Oh, seven, 7, 9.
Yeah. And then the Matthew 9:35 supposed to be the gospel of the kingdom as well.
Huh. I'm. Well, it's kind of driving me crazy. Can't find it, but
Try Matthew 9:35.
Jesus went about all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues and preaching the gospel of the kingdom
Hmm.
and healing sickness and every disease among the people.
So was Jesus here says he's preaching the gospel of the kingdom? Was he telling them about their death, burial, and resurrection?
Right? Obviously not. We we actually know that the disciples didn't even know what he was talking about when he flat out told them the Son of Man's going to be handed over to the hands of sinners to be rejected and killed, and on the third day he'll rise again. And they had no idea what he was talking about. No
So
idea.
yeah, I mean that that's another thing. Like we talked about those buzzwords,
Hmm.
and so you see the word gospel, and you're like, oh, Paul's gospel in 1 Corinthians 15, 1 through 8.
Yeah, and you can see in the entire Bible, we have, according to the search results, we have 101 occurrences of the word gospel, 95 verses, 58 chapters, 19 books. Okay, And you want me to say we got look Matthew, Mark, okay, Acts, Romans, Corinthians, Galatians, Philippians. I mean, all these. You want me to believe that every single instance of this word, gospel, means the exact same thing when a handful of them happened before the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't. No, I'm not buying that. I don't think you should either, right? And the gospel of the kingdom, well, I think that the gospel of the kingdom that Jesus came to preach, part of his ministry on earth was to tell first to the Jew, because then to the Greek, but his ministry was to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. The gospel of the kingdom is telling them there's going to be a kingdom that the Son of Man or the Messiah is going to come and establish, and he's going to rule forever and ever in righteousness and peace. What if
Mm.
that sounds like the gospel of the kingdom? You know what that doesn't sound like to me? That doesn't sound like the gospel of your salvation, which is how that Christ died for our sins according to the scriptures and was buried and was raised on the third day according to the scriptures, and that was seen of Paul, of Cephas, and et cetera, over 500 brethren at once, and last of all of me as apostle born out of due time. That's not what that sounds like to me.
And notice the healing of sickness and every disease.
Yeah.
That's also present in Matthew 4:23 on the side there. It says,
Mm-hmm.
preaching the gospel of the kingdom and healing all manner of sickness and all manner of disease.
Uh-huh.
So it seems like there's some connection of healing there if it's mentioning it twice.
Yep. Gospel of the kingdom, healing all that. Yeah. So it's like gospel of the kingdom is kind of like restoration is the theme of the gospel of the kingdom. Are things going to be restored when Christ come to reign in the millennium reign? The millennial reign are things going to be restored, Kurt?
Well, I mean, he's going to be reigning and ruling here on earth. So if he's a good king, imagine things will be a lot better.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I can't imagine things getting worse. He's definitely going to be restoring things. So healing sickness and disease is it's a very restoring thing. So I think the good news of the kingdom is that things are going to be restored. Okay. Now, is that the same thing we hear about the gospel of our salvation that Paul the apostle was entrusted with to preach to us? It's not necessarily about restoration. Like, sure, maybe spiritually you can say, through the new birth you're restored unto a new life or something like that. Like sure, there's an aspect of restoration, but it's not the restoration of the entire globe. Like, I have good news for you. The world is restored. No, it's not. Do you watch the news? It's not restored yet. Are you kidding me? Right? So no, clearly, there's a distinction of how that word gospel is being used when we get into the Pauline epistles.
Yeah, and gospel just means good news. Could
Yeah,
be any good news. Hey,
yeah.
Vinny, I have good news. I got a raise today.
That's the gospel of my
I,
salvation. That'd be ridiculous. Nobody would say that.
okay, so going back, now what point are we trying to make here? So
Yeah,
initially we were trying to answer some questions from the 25, 45, and 46, I believe it was.
yeah, we were it was kind of a rabbit hole about the gospel of the kingdom, and I made mention of the Revelation
Mm-hmm.
angel preaching the gospel. So it was all off of verse 14 here in chapter 24. So Jesus is talking about answering the question, sign of thy coming, the end of the world. He's giving answers, earthquakes and famines and pestilences, and you'll be delivered up, and they'll betray one another, and you'll be killed. False prophets will deceive, iniquity shall abound. But he that shall endure to the end, the same shall be saved. Oh no! What if we have a really clever guy that wants to take this out of context to pair it with chapter 25, last two.
Calvinist.
Yeah, right. Like, oh, let's put that in pink because that's an icky one if you're not rightly dividing, right? Oh, you got yeah. If you're a Mormon, right? You're a Latter Day Saint. You're gonna love that one. Oh, you got to endure to the end. You got to endure. You got to endure. See, you got to keep. No.
But even
See,
even that group of he, like it's a he among who,
you got
he
a
among
ye.
whom, probably better grammar, but we're seeing who's Jesus referring to. Ye, now he is talking to the disciples, but again, this is a future event, obviously, since it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, like
We know that.
Israel.
So Israel, interesting. So Israelites.
Yeah, this is Jewish. Oh, wait, is it called the time of Kurt's trouble, or the time of Vinny's trouble, or is it called the time of Jacob's trouble?
Well, I mean, every day is a time of Kurt's trouble.
Yeah, see, the point is that, the time, the Bible says the time of, let's see how many times the phrase, the time of Jacob's trouble pops up. Let's see. Let's just put in Jacob's trouble. Jacob's, oops, if I can spell right. Jacob's trouble. Let's see. Oh, looks like only once in the entire Bible, right there, Jeremiah 30. For that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. Oh, interesting. That's
Hmm.
kind of enduring to the end. I wonder, yeah, there must be a pretty nice cross reference here.
Spoken of by Daniel the prophet.
Mm-hmm.
Where
Yeah.
where is that?
Um, Daniel.
I mean, you see the rabbit hole, but the reason for the rabbit hole is because if you don't have this information and you're making a conclusion off of it, are you making the most reasonable conclusion based on all of the evidence, or are you throwing in a bunch of assumptions? I'm not saying
Right.
it's easy to study the Bible or understand it. It takes some work. Study to show thyself approved, rightly
Right.
dividing. So do you see how we're rightly dividing here? We're
Yep.
dividing because, well, there you go. It's the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet. Well, what
Uh-huh.
is that?
Yeah. Well, it's I mean, I can't give you a definitive answer to why I can connect it, but I would, if I were a betting man, I would say that abomination of desolation and Jacob's trouble are probably synonymous. I know things that are different are not the same. Like, until you have a good reason or you can prove that they're synonymous, you need to have that mindset. But I mean, I'm sure that there's probably some way you can connect those dots.
Well, I mean, if he's saying Daniel said it, where do you think we might be able to find it?
Well, obviously, yeah, and Daniel, right? So I wonder if it's how many more times is that phrase combination of so let's see. Um wow, see Jesus isn't even using the same terminology as Daniel. See the phrase abomination of desolation, that's only in Matthew and Mark in the entire Bible. So I think that's pretty good evidence that there probably is a connection. Jesus is just using a synonymous phrase to
So
describe
no,
what Daniel was speaking of.
the note I have here, I got Daniel 8:13 and 11:31.
All right, Daniel 8. Let's go check it out. 8:13. Whoops. I don't know how that happened. 8:13. Vision concerning the daily sacrifice.
Transgression of desolation.
Oh, transgression and abomination seem to be being used interchangeably here by Christ. So that's interesting.
Give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden underfoot. 2,300 days.
Then shall the
Interesting.
sanctuary be cleansed. Interesting. The sanctuary, could that be referring to the throne that Jesus said he was going to be sitting on, his throne of glory? It's going to be cleansed, and then he's going to come down and sit down and purify it?
Or the son of perdition sitting in it. I mean, see, we're getting way off into the weeds here, but the point that we're making here is that it's kind of important to do that. And so I'm not afraid to show some of our ignorance,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
this is how you find out, right? Now, what was the other one? 11:31, Daniel 11:31. And there's nothing wrong on standing on the shoulders of people who have made these observations either. You just have to still cross-reference it with scripture.
11.
King
Oh,
of
you
the
said
South
11.
shall be moved with collar. Oh
You say
no.
11:31? Is that what you said?
11:31.
Oh, maketh desolate. I see that. Oh, the abomination that maketh desolate. There we go.
Hmm.
That's what I see there.
They shall pollute the sanctuary of strength and shall take away the daily sacrifice, and they shall place the abomination that maketh desolate. So, okay, so now it sounds like because we know the sacrifices are supposed to start again, right? Even there's kind of interesting stuff going on in Israel right now with the red heifers,
Uh-huh.
so they can continue the temple sacrifices. And it's getting a little off in the weeds here, but so it sounds like the temple sacrifices are going to continue. And then it sounds like the abomination of desolation is going to prevent those sacrifices, shall take away the daily sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
Now that sounds very Jewish to me, unless Christians are out there sacrificing goats and doves and stuff. I haven't experienced that at any church. Probably if I saw that at a church, I'd run away screaming or something. But
Yeah, that would tell me that they're probably the worst as it gets when it comes to handling the Word of God if they can't even understand that those laws written in the first five books weren't even addressing them.
and so I guess part of the point here though is like so now we already have to do a whole study of the abomination of desolation, trying to understand that to even remotely begin to understand what Jesus is talking about in the original passage that so do you see how in depth the Bible is?
Hmm.
And you're just sitting there going, that means you can lose your salvation or whatever
Hmm.
conclusion you came to. And it's like, did you even do what we just started doing?
Yeah. Or you can start arguing for the idea that the abomination of desolation is happening right now, and that'll solve all the cognitive dissonance with your pew. And like, all right, fine, try to prove it. Show me scripturally. Like, challenge that notion. I don't think you're gonna succeed. I don't think it's gonna work out very well for you, but it's like you have to you have to make a choice. There's a fork in the road. You got to go one way or the other. You can't
Right.
just
So yeah, and just there takes a bit of humility, I think. And I think also, people really like a nice, orderly, canned answer, kind of like, hey, oh, look, here's what it is, and here's the certainty of it. And so even if it's missing all of these details and not taking that in context, it's very digestible. It's a, oh,
yeah.
okay, and that helps me understand it. And now I have certainty. And now I don't have to look ignorant if I'm talking to somebody. And like look, I'm fine with looking ignorant if I don't know it and if I am ignorant. And here we are, we're a little ignorant about something. I mean, at least I am. I don't want to speak for you. But it would take
Yeah.
doing all the study. Now, I mean, we could go back because again, I think all we demonstrated here is like look at all this stuff to consider, right?
So much. I mean, there's so much packed into this 24, 25, 26 section of Matthew. I mean, it's insane. I mean, and to piggyback off what you were saying, like, anybody, and like, I'm a musician, and this is very true musically too. And as a chess player, same thing here. It's like anybody who walks around acting like that they have like arrived somehow, those are the people who have the most to learn. Okay, they've got the most work cut out for them. All right, and it's no different with the Bible. I'm not saying by any stretch of the imagination I know the Bible better than anybody. I'm, but I have the foundations. I have the right tools in my toolbox to help me do it, so I can get to that point, and I can somehow get inchworm myself a little bit closer to that point of arrived. Get what I'm saying?
Well, for sure. And I think all that we're demonstrating or hopefully illustrating to anybody watching, is it's not so much that we're even sitting here saying that we have the answers. We're just trying to show you the process of how to get the answers, and we're also demonstrating that, like, look, it takes a bit of work. Like, so don't just come to some conclusion and then dogmatically hold to that, and then start calling people a heretic because they disagree with your doctrine. I mean, it, it's okay to kind of say, like, look, I'm not certain. I haven't dived this deep into it yet, but we should acknowledge that there is this deep diving to do to discover
Yeah,
it, right? And
yeah,
we just went off on a total tangent on it, but that tangent's kind of important.
yeah,
And so even the conclusion, so that we'll come to, maybe by the end of it, and maybe we won't come to any conclusions, but whatever we do come to, we're still saying, like, look, you got to look into all this stuff. You know what I mean?
yeah. And it's like after all that deep diving, after all the rabbit holes, all these things that might be making your head spin right now, it should just be one giant testament to the idea that this is not preaching work salvation. Okay, like this is not the purpose of the passage. Like there's so much that we have exposed already, let alone how much there's probably more to connect. I mean, we're going to just sit here and just pretend like that was the Apostle Paul saying that to some Christian church. And "Oh, there you go, you got to do works." I was kidding. That thing I said to the Ephesians, yeah, I was just joking.
Right.
That's not real.
Right. And I think, yeah, part of the things that I think, firmly established, though, is like, look at who he's talking to. Look, it's a future event. Look, it has to do with prophecies that deal with Israel, right? So then it just begs the question, well, why are you reading this, Christian, and deciding that this applies directly to you, and that it even has anything to do with Christians or Christian salvation whatsoever? Where are you getting that from? What in the text has suggested that yet? We haven't seen anything that suggests that yet.
Yeah, you want to see, you want to talk about church age of grace, salvation, Apostle Paul, talking about it's the gospel of Christ, which is really more what we're talking about when we talk about the salvation of our soul. Even that is to the Jew first, to the Jew first, and also to the Greek, and also to the Gentile. So if the gospel of our Gentile salvation here in 2025 is to the Jew first, why in the world would the gospel of the kingdom that Jesus is talking about not be to the Jew first? You see, it's just like it's goofy to act like anything else is true.
Well, and Paul even says that it was a mystery until it was revealed to him. And I'm
Yeah.
forgetting the verse up. So, but think about that. Was the gospel revealed to Paul yet during Matthew 24 and 25?
Paul wasn't even saved.
He didn't even have Christians to persecute yet.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. The Christians were first called that in Antioch. Okay. Like
mhm.
we're not even talking, we're not even in Acts yet. Okay.
So if the gospel is a mystery here, like, certainly, if Jesus even is preaching the gospel that we understand as the gospel as it was revealed to Paul, they're not understanding it.
Right.
I think so. Does that mean like, does it open up the floor to, perhaps it's a different good news, and perhaps it's a different gospel? And I know that's going to trigger people. So there's only one gospel. And I mean, no.
Look at this. It's right here. Right. Oops. Highlighter didn't work. Took unto them the 12 and said unto them, Behold, we go up to Jerusalem, and all things that are written by the prophets concerning the Son of Man shall be accomplished. For he shall be delivered unto the Gentiles, Romans in this case, Roman government rule, right?
Mhm.
Crucifixion was a Roman form of punishment, and shall be mocked and spitefully entreated and spitted on, and they shall scourge him and put him to death. And the third day he shall rise again. And they understood most of these things. Nope, not what it says. None. Zero. It might as well have been Chinese. They did not understand what he was saying.
And this saying was hid from them, neither knew they the things which were spoken.
Who's them? Oh, the 12. Oh, you mean the one that he chose? Oh, I've chosen you 12. Ooh. Oh, looks
Yeah.
like the chosen, the elect people. There's things hidden from.
And
Oh,
and when they were preaching the gospel earlier in Luke 9, 8 or 9, somewhere around there, 8, 9, or 10, says they were going and they were preaching the gospel.
yep. Let's see, preaching the gospel. Yeah, they on 9:6, and they departed and went through the towns preaching the gospel. Okay, here we go. We're in 18. We're in chapter 18, and they're not understanding the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. You're going to tell me in chapter 9 they were preaching the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ? Give me a
Well, I
break.
mean, I'm not a mathematician, but I do think that 9 comes before 18. That
As a matter of
might
fact,
be
I
right
think
on
if
that.
as a matter of fact, I think if you took the number 18 and broke it in two parts, they would both be the number 9,
Hmm.
right? Like you just split it in half. It's almost like twice as much time or whatever. It's like, yeah, there's no wiggling around this. This is clearly like there's a distinction here.
And
Gospel doesn't always mean what Paul is saying, but
and even this example in Luke 18, it hasn't happened yet.
yeah,
Hey,
yeah,
Jesus is talking about a future event
yeah.
because how he wouldn't be able to talk it if, he was dead and buried for 3 days. I don't think he was saying anything to anybody on earth at that time. At least nothing in the scripture supports that.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's kind of preaching the gospel. That phrase is only found 5 times. Five's the number of death. Isn't that interesting? Jesus had to die. That's kind of fun. You know,
And
that kind of thing
what
is
might actually give us some additional context here, and we can go back to Matthew 25, would be actually taking a look at the parable of the talents.
sure. Yeah, yeah. So that would be after the virgins, right? Yeah. Here we go. Here we go. Starting in verse 14. For the kingdom of heaven is as a man traveling into a far country, who called his own servants and delivered unto them his goods. And unto one he gave 5 talents, to another two, and to another one, to every man according to his several ability. And straightway took his journey. Then he that had received the 5 talents went and traded with the same, and made them other 5 talents. And likewise, he that had received two, he also gained the other two. But he that had received one went and digged in the earth and hid his Lord's money. After a long time, the Lord of those servants cometh and reckoneth with them. And so he that had received 5 talents came and brought other 5 talents, saying, Lord, thou deliverest unto me 5 talents. Behold, I have gained beside them 5 talents more. His Lord said unto him, Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of thy Lord. He also that had received 2 talents came and said, Lord, thou deliverest unto me 2 talents. Behold, I have gained 2 other talents beside them. His Lord said unto him, Well done, good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of thy Lord. Then he which had received the 1 talent came and said, Lord, I knew thee that thou art an hard man, reaping where thou hast not sown, and gathering where thou hast not strawed. And I was afraid, and I went and hid thy talent in the earth. Lo, there thou hast that is thine. His Lord answered and said unto him, Thou wicked and slothful servant, thou knewest that I reap where I sowed not, and gather where I have not strawed. Thou oughtest therefore to have put my money to the exchangers, and that at my coming I should have received mine own with usury. Take therefore the talent from him, and give it unto him which hath 10 talents. For unto every one that hath shall be given, and he shall have abundance. But from him that hath not shall be taken away even that which he hath. And cast ye the unprofitable servant into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Oh man, there you go. You're going to lose your salvation.
Right. Now, there's some interesting thing, and I've actually kind of sad because I've actually posed this to quite a few people. Some have even answered me, but a lot of people they say the parable of the talents and the parable of the pounds is the same parable. And I have actually asked them, I'm like, well, could you compare the parable of the pounds and the parable of the talents and tell me what is different? And I kid you not, Vinny, they have said, no, I don't see any difference. It's the same thing. Now, how is this possible? Because let's take a look. Let's take a look at the parable of the pounds and see what is different.
Yeah, so let's see. I'm just kind of putting these little searches here. I'm going to type in, I'm just going through just the four gospels. I'm just going to put pounds. So I have talents, talent, pounds, and I'm going to put pound singular. Let's see. So if we exclude talents, talents, and we just have pounds, oh, look at that. Luke and John, 11 occurrences altogether.
Yeah, so we got probably Luke 19, starting 13.
Yep. Let's see.
So, and it looks like it goes a little further back. There we go. He added and spake a parable because he was nigh to Jerusalem, and because they thought that the kingdom of God should immediately appear. He said, therefore, a certain noblewoman went into a far country to receive for himself a kingdom and to return. And he called his 10 servants and delivered them 10 pounds and said unto them, occupy till I come. Well, first and foremost, I'm already seeing a difference here
Mm-hmm.
because how many servants?
Uh, 10.
Hmm. When we read the parable of the talents, how many servants was it?
Let's see, let's exclude those. Well, there was, just I'll go,
Oh, that's the no, Matthew 25.
yeah, yeah, it was 25, 15 here. Um,
So he gave one five,
so,
another two, and another one.
oh, there are three different servants in this one, right?
Hmm. So
Unto, unto one,
three, three, and 10. Is that a different number, Vinny? I'm
I don't
kind of
know.
stupid. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, that's quite the difference there, isn't it?
And okay, so then we have all right, so different amount of servants. That's interesting. That sounds like a different parable to me already. And
Yeah,
then he gave them what?
gave them
He gave
talents,
and what did he give the 10 servants?
pounds.
Huh. Is a talent a pound?
Yeah, I don't see why, I don't see any reason to treat those two words as if they're the same thing, so I'm going to treat them as if they're different.
And now the just to give a little bit of information, so a pound is an English currency, and talent would have been a Jewish currency. So we're dealing with possibly Gentiles here.
See that? You see
Little
right
bit
there?
of history helps there, right? But
Yeah,
noticing also things different are not the same. Okay, so we have a
yep.
different amount of servants. We have a different type of currency. Then how much what how many pounds was each servant given in Luke 19?
Let's see. 10 servants, 10 pounds. So 10 pounds between all the servants, looks like to me.
Hmm. And how so but with the talents it looks like one of the servants got five and another
Uh-huh.
one got two and another one got one.
Uh-huh.
So not only were they given a different currency, they were given a different amount of currency.
Hmm.
But again, you're going to tell me that you don't notice any differences? That you really compared these two passages? And yeah, I mean, they're saying the same thing. Like, put on your observation glasses here, guys. Okay, so
Yeah.
then,
Yeah, this
um,
one thing I want to mention too. It's implying that there's 1 pound per servant because look at these. The first said thy pound singular, and the other one says thy pound, thy pound, thy pound. You see
mm,
thy pound. So each it's literally a pound per person. Very different than 5 talents to one, 2 talents to another, and 1 talent to. This is they're not even the same thing.
mhm. And then we have, but his citizens hated him. Well, wait, we have servants, and then we have citizens. But in the other one, it doesn't mention citizens, but it does say his own servants.
In which one? The
The parable of the talents, it says his own servants, and it makes no mention of citizens,
hmm, interesting. Yeah, his own
who called
servants.
his own servants. Now, cross reference here, we have John 1. He came unto his own, and his own received him
Received him
not.
not. Yep.
Hmm. And who were his own? The Jews.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So the citizens mentioned in Luke are the Jews. The Jews hated him, and then you have Gentile servants who are getting pounds.
Yeah, let's go back.
See a difference?
So let me see exactly the difference you're talking about here. Uh, so you're saying called his 10 servants, right?
Hmm. But his citizens hated him. So there's a juxtaposition between the 10 servants and his citizens.
Oh, the citizens of a certain nobleman, rather than. So we're also talking about. Let's see. I'll highlight that. A certain nobleman. Is that different? Is there a difference here too? Nobleman versus what's Matthew saying? Let's exclude the uh, um, a man traveling into a car. It's just talking about a man, right?
And notice it says kingdom of heaven,
Uh-huh.
and I believe in the pounds it says kingdom of God.
Hmm. Yeah, no reason to treat those two things as the same thing either, right? I mean, they got to think about these things. Like the King James translators intentionally decided to, for whatever, because the Greek is clearly reflecting this. Okay, why in the world would that distinction be there? Yeah, kingdom of God, and why did he speak the parable? Because um, these people in Jerusalem thought the kingdom of God should immediately appear. He was correcting that idea.
Hmm.
So it sounds like to me the parable is being spoken for a completely different purpose too. So, but no, they're the same thing, huh?
Yeah. So then we can take a look at some other differences. We don't have to go too into detail here, but okay, so then the servants similarly, they are given a they're given a pound and then they're returning it, or whatever it was that they did with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so let's compare that to the talents. So it came to pass when he was returned. You scroll down a bit.
Oh.
Came to pass when he was returned, having received the kingdom, and he commanded these servants to be called unto him, to whom he had given the money, that he might know how much every man had gained by trading. Then came the first, saying, Lord, thy pound hath gained 10 pounds. Well, that's interesting because the servant in the talents, he had 5 talents and he got 5 more talents.
Mm-hmm.
Here, the first servant had one talent and he multiplied it tenfold.
Yeah.
Hmm. 10 is also the number of the Gentiles for anybody who's curious.
Interesting.
And he said unto him, well, thou good servant, because thou hast been faithful in a very little, have thou authority over 10 cities. And the second came, saying, Lord, thy pound hath gained 5 pounds. So he increased it fivefold. And he said likewise to him, Be thou also over 5 cities. And another came, saying, Lord, behold, here is thy pound, which I have kept laid up in a napkin. Interesting. So, believe in the parable of the pounds, the parable of the talents, the servant who did not return, like just returned the same amount of talents, who had the one talent, what did he do with the talent? Because here in the pounds, he kept it in his pocket in a napkin.
Mm-hmm.
The parable of the talents, he went and he buried it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, am I going to get into what that means? I'm not going to get into what that means right now. I'm going to tell you it's different.
Yeah. Yeah. And what about what was the end? What was the verdict of this whole thing? How did
Oh, yeah.
how did this end? Right? Uh, did it end with the servant that hid his pound in the napkin? Did he say cast them into eternal hellfire, weeping and gnashing of teeth? Uh, no, I
Yeah,
don't see that in the
outer
text.
darkness.
Yeah.
He said unto them that stood by, Take from him the pound and give it to him that hath 10 pounds. They
Yeah.
said then they said unto him, Lord, he hath 10 pounds. For I say to you that every one which hath shall be given, and from him that hath not, even that he hath shall be taken away from him. But those mine enemies, which would not that I should reign over them, bring hither and slay them before me. Also, nobody was slain in the parable of the talents. And yeah, what happened to that servant? He just gave his pound to the guy with 10 pounds and nothing. Wait, so no, no loss of salvation there? No being
Yeah.
cast into interesting.
Yeah.
Different.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the point. It's different. So again, we don't have to get into all the details here, but if you're sitting there and you're telling me you compared these two things, compared these two parables, and you are saying, no, I mean, they're saying the same thing. How?
Yeah. I don't know how you're saying that. It just doesn't make sense.
And so all we're trying to encourage here, like again, not even coming to conclusions or telling you what it means or anything, just just analyze the text. Like how we just pointed out the differences. You can do that too. You can do that too when you're reading scripture. Like just because it's similar doesn't mean it's same.
Yeah. 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 I'm sure there are things that are different in scripture that are talking about the same thing, but there's scriptural reasons to prove that. So there's no until you can definitively prove like just completely just extantly prove that two concepts are synonymous, the default should be things that are different or not the same. That's the rule of thumb.
And Matthew, I mean, one thing about Matthew, if you look at the lineage of Jesus, that the account of the lineage of Jesus, and we don't have to pull it up, but you could cross-verify this for yourself if you want. Notice it traces back to Abraham.
Yep.
Then in the Gospel of Luke, it traces back to Adam. Hmm,
Interesting.
different again. Does that mean anything? Well, do you think it does that on accident? No,
Also,
nothing to see here, right? And then now Luke, well, who was Luke a traveling partner of? Who did Luke have a close relationship with?
Paul.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So perhaps Luke was exposed in a different way to some of the Pauline revelation, which maybe is why Luke seems to align better with the Pauline epistles than Matthew does.
Yeah, and
It's different.
that Matthew is it's a Jewish audience. I mean, like it's all of it's I mean, it's all kind of geared like primarily to Jews, but like Matthew is if there was any of the four of the Gospels you wanted to use to witness to a Jew and to prove to them that Jesus is the Messiah, as prophesied in the Tanakh, well, you would probably be picking passages out of Matthew as opposed to any other one. I mean, because that's just it's a very Jewish gospel account.
Oh my gosh. I mean, very, very much so, you know.
Yeah.
And but again, it's like, does that matter? Well, like you can ignore these aspects if you want, but why would you throw out this context, right? So,
Yeah.
but getting back to Matthew and even kind of our original point, so now we're establishing Jews, we're establishing a parable that we just demonstrated was two Jews that's different than
Hmm.
the one in Luke that people say is the same parable. We demonstrate it's not the same parable. So, like, there might be different meanings here. So, why are you taking verse 45 and 46
Yeah. Right.
and
Exactly.
saying this means that a Gentile Christian can lose salvation if they don't do works? Like, what? Where do you get that from?
Yeah. Yeah. Not only that you're losing your salvation, but you've sealed your fate and you're going to hell.
Yeah. So, I
Crazy.
mean, well, there could be some other interesting observations here. I just talked a lot on the last one. I do kind of have some interesting things on the parable of the virgins, the 10 virgins.
Uh-huh.
But would you like to, before we go there, would you like to, why don't you take a look at the goats, the sheep of the goats and the nations, and because that's often one that's thrown at you too.
Yeah.
Calvinists like to say the reprobates are goats and
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
elect
So
are sheep. And yeah.
yeah, so let me just help you out a little bit. We're just gonna have our little handy dandy pure Bible search. Okay. Actually, you know what? Just John. You know, like they like to say in John, you know, Jesus says, I lay my life down for the sheep. You know, and then they sit there and they try to say, well, that's obviously limited atonement because he didn't lay his life down for the goats. Want to know something? See, still got these out here. You want to tell me how many instances of the word goats are found in the Gospel of John?
It's saying zero right there.
Yeah, zero occurrences of goats, or let's see, how about singular? Oh, goat, goats, doesn't matter. I mean, it's not in the Gospel of John.
I mean, how
So
many
why?
times does it even show up in New Testament?
Yeah, let's see. Entire New Testament. Let's do goat. Singular is zero. Goats plural, six. And oh, look at that, entirely Jewish writings. Interesting.
Matthew and Hebrews. Hmm.
Yeah, interesting. So, Mr. and Mrs. Calvinist, you want me to believe that the sheep and the goats is supporting your silly little doctrine of tulip, right? You know, because oh yeah, the goats are the reprobates and the sheep are the elect. You're not even, buddy. You're not even talking about Gentile Christianity right now. What makes you think that this is anywhere near your domain?
And in Hebrews right there, it looks like it's literally referring to literal goats who were literally sacrificed like in the Old Testament.
Yeah.
It's not even referring, the only time it's referring to people is the two occurrences there in Matthew 25. And is it referring to people?
Well, let's see what the text says. When the Son of Man shall come in his glory. Okay, future event, hasn't happened yet. All the holy angels with him. Then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory, and before him shall be gathered all nations. Okay,
Hmm.
nations. and he shall separate them, the nations, one from another, as a shepherd divideth his sheep from the goats. Okay, so back to the Calvinist guy. Sheep and goats. Oh, okay. If you insist on doing that, guess what? You're preaching work salvation, buddy. Congratulations. I hope you feel proud of yourself. Because that's the context here. We're talking about works here in Matthew 25.
And it even looks like there that it is referring to individuals, but in Matthew 25:31 there, it's referring to nations.
Yeah. Yeah,
It
there's
says,
there
nations, he shall separate them. Who is them? Nations.
yep. Yep. The
And he
sheep are
shall
going to be
set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. And who are the sheep and who are the goats? They are nations.
yep. Yep.
Now, why do you think he's like, who do you think the sheep and the goat are? Not just nations, but like who, like which nation would be considered a goat? Which one might be considered a sheep?
Well, it says here, the king shall say unto them, come ye bless my father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. I didn't say before the foundation of the world. It says from the
Mm.
foundation of the world, first of all, right? For I was an hungered and you gave me meat. And again, we're talking about when the Son of Man shall come in his glory. Okay, we're not so clearly we're talking about future, uh, possibly millennial reign type of stuff going on. This is not talking about those who have been predestined to be saved and rejecting the predestined to be damned. Again, works. That's the context. You can't be a good Calvinist and say work saves you. So I think this is your invitation to just drop that. Just get rid of the whole sheep and goats thing. It doesn't work. It doesn't support your theology, right? I was hungered, you gave me meat. I was thirsty, you gave me drink. Why are they blessed of my Father? because because I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, you took me in. I was naked and you clothed me. I was sick and you visited me. I was in prison, you came to me. And they're called the righteous. The sheep are called righteous, right? You see that?
Hmm.
So the sheep are the good guys, all right? The good guys of whom? The nations.
Hmm.
Not the VIP section chosen by God before the foundation of the world. Okay, you see how different those two ideas are, right?
And I think what's interesting too is like, okay, let if we were even to apply it currently, which I don't think Jesus is sitting in his throne
Yeah,
right now. I don't.
yeah, yeah,
But let's say we were to apply it to current events. Well, what about this whole Palestine and Israel thing?
yeah.
So if it was just Israel and just Palestine, who do you think might be a sheep and who do you think might be a goat?
Yeah, I would like to think Israel would be a sheep. Seeing the fact they're God's chosen people, it seems very reasonable to me.
Hmm. And then who's supporting Israel and who's supporting Palestine?
I don't know actually.
Well, it's sort of rhetorical, and so
Yeah.
as in, so maybe the country that's supporting Israel is
Mhm.
going to be considered a sheep, and maybe the country supporting Israel's enemies might
Yeah,
be
yeah.
considered a goat.
Yeah, yeah, I see what you're saying. Yep, yeah, like yeah, if you're you're a nation and you're against Israel, and you think you're gonna be a goat, you're gonna be on the left hand, and you're gonna be you're gonna be the one who did not take him in. You're gonna be the one who did not give Jesus meat. You were the one who did not give him drink when he was thirsty. You were the one who did not clothe him and did not visit him in prison.
Hmm.
Right? In as
And
much
the
as
parable of the talents was before this, right? And it was talking about uh, uh, his own servants, right? And then the parable of
Mhm.
the pounds, you had his own citizens, and then it talked about taking those own citizens and or his citizens and slaying them at the end, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Could be some correlation there, but in what context, you know?
yeah. So, yeah, I don't know about you, but I think this is a pretty solid place to probably wrap it up. I think it was pretty much as much as our minds can probably go through. You know, it's been almost a couple hours now, and it's I think we went through a lot. What do you think?
Think we did go through a lot. Was some kind of cool stuff with the Virgin, but yeah, has been a while. And yeah, so I'd say in conclusion, at least for the audience takeaway, we didn't give you too many conclusions, right? And
Right.
that's not even necessarily what we're trying to do. And I know it's nice to get a nice solid conclusion, and now I can go tell people, well, yeah, this is what I think. Like get away from that type of thing. It's okay to come to conclusions, but
Hmm.
but make sure you come to a well-informed conclusion. And so I think what we're demonstrating here is like just look at all these things to consider. And here's why it's not good to just come to a conclusion based on information you haven't even studied. And to be honest, I don't think Vinny and I have even on our own given Matthew 24 and 25 the attention it deserves, the deep
Yeah,
dive that it deserves. We
yeah, yeah.
demonstrated that even going off into the abomination of desolation and all that. Like, what is that? Well, I haven't done that yet. So I don't want to sit there and I don't want to tell you a conclusion when I haven't even done that yet. But we're also showing you to consider that, to do that yourself, how to follow the process that'll help you actually come to the best conclusion. And I think we also showed you why it's not reasonable that you take a verse out of context at the very end of a concept and you say, see, this supports that doctrine. Like, that's stupid. That's the wrong thing to do.
Right. Yeah,
But that's my conclusion. That would be my um, takeaway to give to the audience. What about you?
yeah. I think. I mean, I think you said it pretty well yourself. I just, for me, even if I knew nothing about the Bible, and you're right, I don't, I haven't given Matthew 25 specifically the attention it deserves for sure. Like there's so much that goes into it. I've read it numerous times. I've read the Bible cover to cover, and I've read. That doesn't mean you're always retaining every single. I mean, I mean, this is a living book. Okay, you're going to open this thing up, and you're going to find new things, and you're going to open it up again, and you're going to find things you missed, and then you're going to do it again, and you're still going to find things. It's just this is a Mount Everest, and I don't think anybody's ever gotten to the top. And I would question whether it's even possible to get to the top. So, but you know what? An experienced Bible Mount Everest climber is not going to sit here and say Matthew 20, 25, 45 through 46. You're screwed. You're going to hell. That's the, I think that's the key here. You know, like I think you know God's pretty amazing. He's kind of a genius. You know, there's a good chance that the surface level isn't really all that's there. You should probably do your homework and see if there's something a little bit more to what you're thinking.
And even if we like, let's say I'm not saying we're going to, but let's say a month from now we open back up to Matthew 25 in a Bible study. I bet you we'd uncover some different things, yeah,
Yeah,
than we even
yeah,
discussed here, like that we didn't even know, right? So
yeah.
there's so much to it, and we just kind of want to expose how perverse it is to just
How,
proof text. I
how many times can you recycle an aluminum can?
I have no idea.
If I'm not mistaken, I think it's endless. I think aluminum cans can be recycled infinitively. Like
Hmm,
it's infinite. Like I see the Bible very much the same way. Take
yeah.
Matthew 25. Matthew 25, you can spend the rest of your life. Like, just pretend like the rest of the Bible doesn't exist and just study the context of Matthew 25. You'll probably spend every waking moment trying to figure it out.
And then I guess final warning, right? So if you didn't do what we just did and you stuck to your conclusion that you came to from verse 45 and verse 46 here. Then what you're going to do is every other part of the Bible, you're going to have that conclusion salient. You're going to try to fit the rest of the Bible into that conclusion, even if you find a place where it contradicts it. And maybe that wasn't the right thing to do.
Yeah, yeah. The starting point has to be faith, trusting that God cannot lie and that He truly did preserve His word, and you have it in your hands, and you can read it, and you can understand it, and it's written in plain English. And when you start from that point, when you start from the point of faith, knowing that you have good reasons to trust God because He's proven it to you over time and time again, it's going to force you to ditch stupid things like, there you go, you got to have works for salvation. Because anybody who knows anything about the New Testament is going to either call it a contradiction or say, hold on now, cowboy.
Mhm.
Let's, you see what I'm saying?
And also just that it takes attention. This this book, it takes careful attention. It's tender and it's beautiful. It's the only perfect thing on this earth, you know? And
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
so it's okay to treat it with attention, to give it attention and to pay attention to detail and to dive into it and caress it and use all of your efforts to try to understand it. Like that's okay. That's much better than making a bunch of assumptions.
I mean,
Do
just think
you
of,
like it when somebody assumes something about you?
right.
So
Yeah,
how do you
just,
think God feels?
yeah. And just think about it. Like, like the King James Bible, I have the same words that our founding fathers in this country were able to hold, the earliest presidents. And I mean, even some of the more modern presidents who still stuck to the King James. I mean, like, and people beyond, I mean, like from 1611, just think about it, right there. And this is a British Bible, it comes from Britain. You have the same words that all these people for over 400 years, like, and you think you could just get away with something like that, like, oh yeah, oh yeah, simple, easy, next, like, no.
To
Right?
this day, it's still the third most sold Bible year to
Yep.
year,
Yep.
and it is the most purchased book in the history of books.
Yep.
There's more copies of the King James Bible purchased and owned and distributed in homes and amongst people
Yeah.
across the world than
Yep.
any other book in history. So still relevant, still relevant.
Yep. Yep. So
Uh,
yeah, Kurt, I think that was good. I had a lot of fun. How about you?
Dude, I always have fun doing this.
Yeah.
Just hope it's helpful to the viewers. And again, it's we got milk to meat. Vinny Basile, that's his YouTube channel. Here I am, how to think, regardless of where you're watching from it. I encourage you to check out his content if you're watching my channel, and I'm sure he would say vice versa.
Yeah. Yeah. Ditto. 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 For sure. There's a lot of good stuff on both ends here, and you know, we're okay if you wanna demean us or chastise us and call us arrogant and this and that. Honestly, we don't care. We have something that we believe the world needs to know, and that's why we're doing this. If you want to get upset about what we have to say about the King James Bible, how to interpret Scripture, you know, sticks and stones. There's some truth to that, right? So we care about the words. Thy word is truth. Words of Christ. Thy word is truth, and we're here to support, defend it, and affirm it, and preach it. And we want to see souls saved, and we want to see Christians grow in their walk, and that's why we're here, folks.
Man, and not
Yep.
have people teach it wrong.
Yeah.
You gotta just read it.
Yeah. Just read it.
Well, more to come on that, I'm sure. Keep an eye on Milk to Meat for
Yep.
some of that. He's got some cool music things planned there. But
Uh-huh. Yep.
yeah, so I guess we're wrapping it up here. And to everyone watching, God bless you. Tune in. Feel free to comment, like, subscribe. That helps us out if you want to see more of this content and share it. And if you have any questions, like go ahead and challenge us, go ahead and question us, go ahead and compliment. We don't get too many of those, but we're good. We're good with any of it. So,
Yep.
yep. God bless you all, and we'll see you the next time.
Yep.